And so you mentioned that even the word Kabbalah, that's most associated with Jewish mysticism, has this connotation of relational, kind of receiving a transmission or a revelation. That seems to fit very neatly with your personal experience as a teenager, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to learn the notes in order to play the chords, in order to construct a song. So that's why, at least classically, this idea that the mystical tradition is reserved for people who have spent a long time on the different strata of Jewish tradition, either reading Torah on its own with its commentaries, learning the legal tradition and legal codes and the debates about the finer points of the law, some of the legends about the actions of the rabbis in the first, second, third century. And right, those things are supposed to fill one's belly, as it were. And then only then could they be ready to actually understand what this mystical tradition holds. However, we certainly have Kabbalistic masters who have said that the floodgates are open now, right? Maybe because of the printing press, or maybe because of the moment, that everyone should be learning Jewish mysticism, not just the elite, not just the people who have spent the time building up their repertoire otherwise, but these are things that are necessary for the rectification of this world, for all worlds. And so even in some traditions, even just having the texts in your home is significant. Even reading the words of the texts without having any idea about what they're saying is a powerful action. And so, it's not merely then an intellectual exercise, but again, the relationship that you have with it, that then something new and powerful emerges.
Yeah, and it seems, at least for the last couple of millennia, it seems that these kind of mystical traditions in all religions have always been secret, or have always been kind of protected, and you really have to, as you say, go through a lot of training to get to the point where you're kind of deemed capable of really getting it, I think. I had a recent episode on Tibetan Buddhism, this particular school of teaching is called Dzogchen, which is, it's supposed to be, there's a taboo on basically sharing it. It's very kind of hidden and secretive because you're supposed to train for years and years and years before you receive these teachings. And as someone who, part of the reason I'm here talking about this stuff is because I think shifting, consciousness at a large scale is really the only thing that will save us as a species, I think, is having a lot of people wake up to the real nature of reality and change their behavior. And so when I reflect on that, and I think the wisdom of the past seems to have been, actually, you're supposed to keep this for a select small number of people. That kind of, I guess, makes me worried if a rollout on a large scale is possible of mysticism. But then I think you just kind of hinted at it, that maybe there are different times and places where these things are suited to being, perhaps there are times when people carry the flame in small groups of specialists, so it's ready for moments like now, when we really need a mass rollout of mysticism to the general population, to kind of, not because and it's not kept hidden because it's unwise to do that, but just because you don't always need it in every generation for everybody to be spending all their time on this stuff. But yes, it sounds like, are you optimistic as well that we could roll it out to a larger scale?
I am optimistic. I'm optimistic, and we have on good authority that this is crucial, I think, for what I said, like the rectification of the world, the saving of the species, as you said. There's a wonderful text where the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement in Eastern Europe in the 18th, 19th century, a master of mysticism, a natural mystic. He had some elevation of consciousness, in Hebrew, and aliyas hanashama, right? His soul went up somewhere to the divine realm. And he actually writes about it in a letter to a family member. He speaks about it as if it was no thing. Like, I had this expanded consciousness, and in that state, he actually meets the spirit or the presence of the Messiah. the figure that is supposed to redeem all of history. And he asks the Messiah, he says, well, when are you actually coming? You know, I see you here, but I'm wondering when you'll actually come here. And the Messiah responds, I'll just read it here. In the time when your teaching, you, the Baal Shem Tov, the master of mysticism, will become public and revealed in the world, and your well springs will burst forth to the farthest extremes. That which I have taught you, and you have comprehended, and they shall be able to perform unifications and elevations as you. And then all of the externalities of the world, all of the things that you thought were extraneous, will cease to exist, and there shall be a time of goodwill and salvation. So this is a core text for Jewish mysticism, Hasidic Jews. The idea of spreading this kind of knowledge and practice is seen as the only way to bring to bring our culture, our species, our world into some balance. And so it's texts like these and others that then encourage us to be finding more ways to be teaching and adapting these ideas and these practices for a more general audience. And that's why I'm excited about psychedelics, because I think that just in terms of scale, the ability to have people have this apprehension and then to be able to return into a course of integration, now having some direct experience, the experiences that are being described, the states of being, or these fanciful visions, then you can actually say oh yes, this is not just a storybook, but this is real, and that I can participate in it. And that's, I think, been the gap, the experience gap. And so finally we have the means with which to bridge it.
Yeah, that quote absolutely hit the nail on the head of my question. I guess that's amazing that you have both an explicit instruction to spread it, but also at the same time, I guess, a system to make sure it's not done irresponsibly, that people have to be trained and exposed at the right time. As we were saying, with these kinds of preparation that has to be done beforehand. Maybe that's something, we could learn from.